What are the keywords that shape conversations and writing about Islam in our society? Who's generating these keywords, and to what extent do they resonate with the lived experience of Muslims in Britain today? Who's defining what it means to be a British Muslim, or exploring the extent to which such an identity is meaningful? Who's shaping policy about the involvement of Muslims in public life, and on what basis? Facts or perception? What counts as integration? Who does the defining of this, and on the strength of what evidence? In my view, the answers to these questions that arise in discourses about Islam and Muslims in Britain are, for the most part, coming from beyond Muslim communities, or also from beyond academic communities. The scale and nature of national and international events affecting the global ummah and the strategic interests of the major powers are arguably having a powerful and unhelpful impact upon all of us. This makes it difficult to transcend reactive responses and move towards more constructive, reflective, critical, contextual, and organic theological and theoretical debate. In my view, the notion of Muslim resilience should amount to more than current noisy and contested debates about counter-terrorism and radicalisation. Rather, true resilience should arise from realising the potential to shape academic and Muslim community agendas and priorities. This shaping should occur in active and purposeful dialogue and in direct reference to a solid foundation of empirical knowledge. Of course, we cannot ignore the noise going on around us, but it should not mean that we're perpetually distracted from the kind of intellectual and community projects that are arguably more likely to have a positive impact on the flourishing of Islamic studies and Muslim communities in Britain in the long term. So my vision for developing Islamic studies rests centrally upon the development of people and institutions that can broaden and strengthen the evidence base pertaining to the daily lived experience of British Muslims. As a social scientist, I would naturally make such a claim, but I think that the future of Islamic studies in this country requires the interdisciplinary collaboration of social scientists, theologians, religious studies scholars, and no doubt the contribution of those from other fields, so that our intellectual landscape is both practically and theoretically well informed. So my future horizon depends on developing the resource of active and aware people. And in particular, there are three crucially important groups of people within the field of Islamic studies who I feel deserve particular support. The first group are Muslim academics who are able to bridge the gap between what is usually referred to as traditional Islamic studies or confessional studies on the one hand, and the world of teaching and learning about Islam that takes place in a university setting. At the moment, one can probably count on the fingers of one hand the number of British Muslim academics who can move seamlessly between these different intellectual worldviews. And just as there has been a long-standing call for more so-called homegrown imams for British mosques, so too I think that homegrown British Muslim intellectuals, conversant with the linguistic and religious discourses that shape British Muslim religious institutions, as well as the discourses that shape the world of the academy, are a critically important group of scholars to nurture and develop. But then what? What kind of distinctive contribution can they potentially make? To some extent, that's a question that only they can answer. But based on the research we did at the Islam UK Centre in Cardiff University a few years ago on the work of Muslim chaplains in Britain, I can see considerable potential for them to support, theologically and theoretically, the emerging practical and pastoral theology that's becoming evident, certainly in practice, among Muslim chaplains. And so Muslim chaplains are themselves my second group of crucially important people who I regard as central in shaping the future of Islamic studies in Britain and the flourishing of Muslim communities. Why is that? Well, our research has demonstrated that Muslim chaplains are confronted on an almost daily basis with the challenge of making the operation of the Sharia meaningful within secular public institutions that have been shaped for generations by ideas about equality and diversity, respect for individual choice, and where staff are required to respect and sometimes provide services for people for a wide range of faiths and beliefs. Within that context, Muslim chaplains have to be skilled pastoral carers, competent, if not comfortable, with working across inter and intra-faith boundaries. And they often act as ambassadors for the Islamic tradition in complex and sometimes hostile institutions, such as prisons. Their accumulated experiences and insights appear to provide an important resource, practically and theologically, about the future of Islam in Britain. And I welcome all opportunities to incorporate their experiences into our intellectual work. Nothing would be more exciting than to see British Muslim theologians working alongside experienced Muslim chaplains in the development of what, in the Christian theological world, is called practical and pastoral theology. But this branch of Christian theology, especially in recent decades, has been stimulated by the contribution of social scientists, especially those social scientists whose epistemology is sympathetic to confessional worldviews. So my third group of crucially important people are social scientists, and within this group there is important work to be done by both the hands-on researchers who can generate an evidence base about the lived experiences of Muslims in Britain today, and the theoreticians who can reflect on the implications and significance of their findings. The Islam UK Centre at Cardiff specialises in this particular project, with its emphasis upon the generation of qualitative data about various aspects of contemporary Muslim life in Britain. But our work in recent years has in a most welcome way been stimulated less by my own intellectual training and preferences, and more by the contribution of a new generation of graduate and postdoctoral scholars. So, for example, Asma Khan's research on British Muslim women and economic activity and inactivity is drawing upon a large quantitative data set as part of a mixed methods PhD, thereby increasing the methodological repertoire of our research activity. Several of my graduate students are making the theory of Islamic critical realism trendy in Cardiff at the moment. So this is pushing us to move away from our reliance on social constructionism and other largely secular social theories towards a theoretical accommodation of the divine as a source of knowledge and understanding of the world. To conclude, the future horizons of Islamic studies in the UK will, in my view, reflect the various contributions of these different groups of crucially important people, both individually and, more excitingly, together. The synergistic potential of theologians, practitioners and social scientists as they converse together and with the broader academic and non-academic communities with which they're associated will create the social, theoretical and theological evidence base that will strengthen our various academic disciplines and empower us to resist and challenge external agendas that threaten to disrupt intellectual priorities.